What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. It's our second episode of the week, but we could not sit on this one. We've got the NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah. You see him everywhere on NFL Network, every single program. They get him on there because he is one of the brightest minds in the football media space. You're watching him on TV. You're listening to him on the Move the Sticks podcast with Bucky Brooks. Go check those guys out if you haven't already. But we've got a great discussion here with Daniel Jeremiah, leading us into week 13, the Bills and Patriots, obviously playing on Monday. But we're taking a bigger picture sort of look at this thing because Daniel Jeremiah's got this great scouting background, working for the Ravens, working for the Eagles. He now is broadcasting for the Chargers. He knows the league inside and out. He's great with the draft, but he also loves talking about team building. And to me, there is an interesting discussion to be had when it comes to how the Patriots have built, and specifically how they've built to fit an inexperienced quarterback. So it's great to have DJ on to talk with us about how this team has been constructed, but also about Mac Jones and how that position, the quarterback spot, gets scouted now moving forward. Will how Mac Jones has performed in his rookie season potentially cause a shift in the NFL, in front offices, in terms of how they look at that position? Mac Jones, of course, doesn't have the looks of an elite athlete, but he's performing at an elite level by a lot of different measures. So how will that change how that position is perceived moving forward? We're getting to all of that and much, much more here with Daniel Jeremiah. Let's get to the conversation right now. Are very excited to have with us now Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network. You know him because every time you flip on the NFL Network, he's there, or you're watching him on Amazon on Thursday Night Football. Daniel, thanks so much for being with us, man.
Oh, it's great to catch up. What's happening?
We've got a pretty good. It just so happens we've got a pretty good football team here in New England. I don't know how it happened, Daniel, but it feels like very quickly this Patriots team's gotten very good.
Yeah, I feel like I blinked and I missed the whole down years segment there with the Patriots, and that was over just like that. Next thing you know, they go out and spend a bunch of money in free agency. It looks like they've hit on darn near all of them. Then you go out and get the quarterback in the draft who has clearly outplayed everybody else in this draft class and just keeps getting better as the season goes along. So, yeah, hats off to Bill Belichick. I know he's got the greatest coach thing. That's all sewn up. Like, that race is over, in terms of greatest coach of all time. I don't think it's a debate. And now I feel like he's just showing off. He's just chasing like personnel expertise and credit now. That's what he's doing.
Well, listen, this is why it's great to have you on. You have the scouting background that you do to get into some of the personnel decisions that they made coming off of that. It was one down year.
Yeah.
Belichick called it a reset year in terms of the cap. How would you characterize the job they've done just in terms of building it, but building it, Daniel, specifically? And I don't know if they had this in mind because they hadn't even drafted Mac Jones yet when they had signed half these guys, but it feels like they have put the pieces in place to have a system that has been really supportive for a rookie quarterback. How would you describe what's gone on as far as the team building portion of it around a young player at the most important position?
Well, I think it was ideal. And I don't know necessarily that it would have been specific just to the young quarterback. I think it was knowing that they need to be a quarterback friendly operation for whoever came in there, be it a veteran or a rookie. But you already had a pretty good offensive line in place. So fortunately, they didn't have to do much there. So many of these bad teams that are, having to go through a transition at quarterback, it's like they've got to choose one or the other. Like, we can try and invest in the offensive line and we can invest in the quarterback. They don't have the draft capital to kind of plug all those holes at the same time. The Patriots already had that. They already had a really good offensive line in place. So then you go out and, okay, where can we find easy completions and friendly targets? And you do that at the tight end position. So they go out and get two of those. And then you want to be able to have somebody that can stretch the field in some way, shape, or form to be able to kind of loosen things up. They go get that done at the receiver position. So they did a lot of things I think that would benefit young quarterback, old quarterback. And then maybe more importantly than anything else, they have the best defense in the NFL right now with the way that they've been playing. And obviously that's Bill's area of expertise, but they went out and got pieces to really kind of fill in around a pretty good nucleus. And they've got all these versatile guys. They're all smart. And I think the fact that they keep the score down each and every week, that you don't ever, I mean, how many times have we seen Mac Jones really in kind of press mode this year? Like, he just hasn't had to do that very often. I mean, he did it valiantly in some almost wins against the Cowboys and against the Bucks early on. But the last 6 weeks, man, it's just been dominant defense.
It really has been. And you lead us to a good discussion. And I'm a huge fan of the Move the Sticks podcast. If you're not listening to that podcast, Next Pat's listeners, what are you doing? First and foremost. But number two, you and Bucky Brooks, and Bucky, we've had on the show before. You guys have this great, I'll call it a game. You have this great device of trucks versus trailers.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Certain players, when you're scouting them, certain guys are trucks. They're pulling the whole operation along. Other guys, maybe, they have their role, they have value, but they may be more so in the trailer category. Where are you putting Mac Jones when it comes to trucks versus trailers, Daniel?
I think that they built the team, and the way he was initially used early on in the season, I think you very much would say he was kind of the trailer being pulled by the rest of the team. That great defense, their ability to run the football when they wanted to. I thought that the play calling, the setup, the design, all the screens, all the different things to make it comfortable for him. I did feel like that he was they were getting where they wanted to go, but he was kind of being pulled by the group. And I think as the season's going along, you're starting to see some truck tendencies, where there's been times where they're starting to let him do some other things and try and make those around him better and pull the team. So to me, he's still in the trailer category. But I think you're starting to see their confidence in him grow, his confidence grow, to start putting the ball more in his hands and letting him try and, make those others around him better. He's going to be a tough one to classify because, you come from a place where you had so many good guys at Alabama, and then now you go to New England where they've set this thing up really well around him. He's not in a spot where you kind of go, man, he's really having to pull all these guys and these nobodies and kind of make them somebodies. He's not really in that environment. But I think you can still look at his poise, his ability to function in key moments and say, okay, this is not something that he's going to be forever classified as a trailer. I think he's got some truck upside there.
Okay. So he's a trailer that's being fitted for a Hemi. Like they're trying to carve out some space in there to maybe turn that into something else. Okay. Yes. I feel like that might be movement. Does that
absolutely? Well, look, there's some guys to use it like Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer is forever and always would be a trailer like this. He's got no upside of ever being a truck. And there's some guys that come into the league, they're like that. I would even say Tua, who's playing much better right now. I think he's going to be a high-end trailer. I don't think he's ever going to be kind of that elite top tier guy that's going to be able to pull everybody along with him. I think he's going to be very dependent on his environment in terms of what they run and who he's throwing to. I think Mac has shown to give you a little bit more than that. So yeah, he's trailer plus right now.
Does the fact that you would characterize him as trailer plus, even if he has that upside, will he change the way that position's scouted at all, in your opinion, Daniel? Because I'm sure there are certain elements of that position that you've always wanted. And it's actually, it's great. You've never been on the podcast in person before, but we've mentioned you many times because we love referring to those old Browns scouting notes that you tweeted maybe 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
But it is remarkable. If you go back and you look at some of the position write-ups, and I actually, the last 2 years now, I have used those and I've written pieces for both the offense and defense, every single position. And I've tried to pick a player in that year's draft class who fits that description. And Daniel, I kid you not, they've drafted like a half dozen guys from those stories. Based on those same Bill Belichick's still looking for the same stuff. And in that quarterback description, it is Mac Jones to a T. Make good decisions, then arm, size, physically tough, which Mac Jones is, leadership, somebody the guys looked up to, a competitor, accurate rather than a guy with a cannon. I mean, it is a description of Mac Jones before, Mac Jones was probably, I don't know, still in diapers when that meeting
1993, right? I think
it was, right? Yeah.
No, so it's insane. The other thing that's interesting about that, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was talking to Jim Nagy earlier today, and Nags obviously spent a lot of time there in New England. And so I was asking him, like, kind of give me some secret sauce on the defense. And it was what he was describing is the exact same stuff in that document, which is they don't play with dumb guys, and versatility is at a premium. And that kind of goes hand in hand, right? When you're smart, you can handle more responsibilities and more duties. And when you kind of look at this team this year, when you have guys like Kyle Duggar, Adrian Phillips, who I was around out here with the Chargers, those guys have played like 5 different positions for this group. So to me, that's smarts, the versatility to be able to morph from one week to the next. Those are the same things. If you look on the defensive side of the ball, they're all mentioned in that document.
When it comes to the quarterback part of that, Will Mack, that was my initial question, then I just went rambling, but will he change the way that position is scouted? Like the guy I think of.
Can he pick it?
No. Well, no. So that's a different discussion, but I like watching him too, but I'm a fan of the book Moneyball.
Yeah.
And the guy that I think of when I think of Mac Jones and just that whole pre-draft process is the catcher who actually went to Alabama, but a section of the story is based around this catcher who looked horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He did not have the look of a pro athlete at all, but he had this great on base percentage, and Billy Beane became obsessed with him. Mac Jones obviously, looks like your plumber probably. So, but does his performance this year as a rookie, where he's shown so much, will that change the way that scouts and personnel people look at guys that play that position moving forward, do you think?
Well, I think everything's cyclical, right? We've kind of gone from the era of Peyton and Tom and Phillip Rivers to 6'5", 6'6", pure pocket passers. Then all of a sudden we saw this evolution take place. I think Russell Wilson probably at the front end of that, obviously Mahomes, and you've seen with Josh Allen and Herbert and all these guys that bring their athleticism. Kyler Murray's another one. And so it was almost like, I know it in last year's draft, like you looked at, and I did it, you look at Zach Wilson and you're like, okay, this is where the league is. This is where, it's not where it necessarily was. Mac Jones maybe is a little bit of a retrofit, like that's, everybody wants a quarterback who can move and create off schedule. And now I think Mac Jones has shown, hey, the pocket passer is always going to have a place in this league. Somebody who makes those good decisions, who's accurate, and who can get you in and out of bad plays. Like those guys are always going to be able to function. Now, in kind of the trucks and trailers thing, you are going to be a little bit dependent in terms of what's in front of you. Now, if you took Mac and put him behind the Jets offensive line, like that's going to be a challenge for him. But when you kind of build the infrastructure there, absolutely you can play and win with a player like this. And so I think, some of those guys who we might discard and say, okay, well, he's just not really a dynamic athlete and, not going to be able, it's going to squeeze our playbook and limit us. I think it's reopened people's eyes to say, no, the pocket passer will always have a place in this league.
So the Patriots have this pocket passer. They also have this great running game. They have this massive offensive line, 380-pound Trent Brown. They bring in 350-pound Mike Owenu off the bench to play jumbo tight end. Sometimes they'll stick those two guys together. That's a scary sight.
That's a lot of beef.
A lot of human there. Is the game changing, Daniel? This is what I want to get you out on. It's sort of a big picture topic, but again, I know listening to Move the Six, you guys like these sorts of big picture, where is the game headed types of topics. Is the game changing in that explosive passing game is being taken away in some places, and guys like Patrick Mahomes, we've seen it this year, Josh Allen have been a little bit up and down? And is it moving back toward, you might need a fullback, or you might want a fullback because it can hurt defenses the way that those defenses are now built? You might want this hammer you in the face running game because of the way defenses are built now. Have we transitioned there yet, or is that going to be something that's ongoing for a while here?
It just goes in circles. It just goes in circles, and you always want to, hop on the train and not get run over by it. And that's where everything kind of moved. And that's where Belichick's always been just a little bit ahead of the curve too, is that, okay, the game's getting smaller and faster in college with all the spread that you see. It's producing smaller linebackers. It's producing, smaller, quicker receivers. The rule changes. You can protect those guys more. Athletic linemen who are never in a 3-point stance in college. And now it's like, okay, well, now we've got all these fast guys all throughout this league. And now Bill Belichick's like, yeah, you put all your little fast guys out there. I'm going to put my 700-pound combination that you just mentioned next to each other. I'm going to put a fullback back there. I'm going to play with 2 tight ends, and we're going to jam it down your throat because you don't have the personnel. You don't have the personnel to match up. And that's why I think, if you look at a team like the Ravens, who, even though the names change every year, and you see, and Matt Judon's done a great job with the Patriots, they let these guys come and go because they know with their physicality, their floor is so high that they're going to be able to beat teams up to 9 or 10 wins every single year. That's where it starts. Now, if they have a better team, then now they can go north of that. But it's such a high floor way to play. The Titans, I think, have kind of become that type of a team where it's going to be hard for them to have a losing record because they're going to be tougher than most teams that they play against, provided they stay healthy. So, no, I think that's fair. I think that's definitely where the league has gone back to.
Can you win at a high level that way? Like, what do you think the ceiling is for this Patriots team? Can they
That's my question.
We're talking Super Bowl here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to say it out loud because it's like, it seems insane, but is that a realistic ceiling for the Patriots playing that style?
I think you are going to need to have a dominant defense, and that to me is what they've shown. And now they're going to have to play some better quarterbacks along the way. They did it to Herbert. They did it to Matt Ryan, but some of those other ones they've seen recently is not going to make the Hall of Fame anytime soon. So they've got to prove it. And I think Buffalo is a good way to start, see how they do, be a good litmus test. My question is, can they do that over 3 games against upper tier offenses, upper tier quarterbacks? Because I do think there is a little bit of a ceiling on that offense of how explosive they can be if they find themselves in one of those types of shootouts in the postseason. So that would be my only cautionary tale is, man, if their defense plays like it's been playing, this offense, you can win a Super Bowl. Absolutely. But they're going to need the defense to stay at that level.
Daniel Jeremiah, you always bring a very high level of analysis, discussion, insight. We appreciate you, my friend. Thanks so much for being on Next Pats here. This was great.
I appreciate you having me. Hopefully we'll catch up down the road. Maybe we get a little a rematch there in the postseason. See Chargers, Patriots, and do it all
Chargers,
over again.
Patriots would be phenomenal if we could somehow figure that out. I don't know if it's mathematically possible. There's still plenty of games left.
Game in LA. You're trying to figure out how this game gets out.
Can we get back out there, please?
I think that ship sailed, Phil. I think that one's gone.
Never say never, Daniel. That's why they play the games. Thanks again, bud.
Thanks, dude.
Really good stuff there from Daniel Jeremiah. I love the fact that he's willing to say he's not quite willing to put him in the truck category just yet. And I think there is some evidence to back him up on that. The Patriots have done a really, really good job in terms of surrounding Mac Jones with the right supporting cast, with the right kind of system, the right play caller, the right head coach to be able to insert him and allow him to blossom almost immediately. So is that just Mac Jones? No, it's not just Mac Jones. Mac Jones was with the Jacksonville Jaguars, or as DJ mentioned, with the New York Jets. Would it look this good? Of course not. But Mac Jones has already shown that he can elevate this team in certain moments as well. I point to the explosive passing play rate. They have been near the tops of the league in that category all year. Some of that stuff is catch and run, but a lot of it is determined by accurate ball placement deep down the field. And it's not always 40 yards down the sideline, but it might be 15 yards over the middle, over the outstretched arm of a linebacker to Hunter Henry or to Jonnu Smith. And that play ends up going for 21. And that goes in the books as an explosive play. And you can be a really, really efficient offense using your quarterback in that fashion. And Mac Jones has been tremendously accurate. He has been elite in terms of his accuracy all season long. Also interesting to hear DJ talk about what it'll take for the Patriots to get to this place that we're all starting to talk about them going. Does he feel like they could get to the Super Bowl on the back of Mac Jones? Probably not. They're going to need their defense to really ratchet it up, especially against the best quarterbacks in football. I mean, when you look at this thing, we were talking about the Chargers at the end of the discussion there. Justin Herbert and the Chargers, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Josh Allen and the Bills. You have some elite quarterbacks. Can't leave out Lamar Jackson, former MVP, and those Baltimore Ravens. They've dealt with so many injuries, but they're going to be right in the mix of this thing as well. They're the number 1 overall seed right now as we stand here. So you're going to have to be able to defend at some point in time some elite level quarterbacks. The Patriots have already shown that they can do it against Justin Herbert. They already showed back in week 4 that they could limit Tom Brady. An emotional night for him, maybe dealing with some issues in terms of the elements. I don't know, but they held Tom Brady to less than 20 points in that game. This defense has proven that it can slow down top tier quarterbacks, and they'll just have to continue to be able to do that to get to. I can't believe we're talking about this, but we should, because it's possible, to get to February. All right, that'll do it for the Next Pats podcast. Thanks to Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network, and the Move the Sticks podcast. Thanks to the Skull Crusher, John Henry, and to Adam Jacey putting out 2 Next Pats episodes this week. We had Dan Orlovsky earlier this week on the pod, so go check out that episode if you haven't heard it already. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week with another Next Pats episode. Have a great weekend. We'll chat very soon.